All right, fresh off the stage, we got Walter Egan at the Malibu Guitar Festival. How'd that feel?
It feels great. I just flew in from Nashville, fought the traffic on PCH, and thanks to my driver, got here right at the downbeat. So it was one of those legendary symbiotic
Well, I know you've
things.
lived everywhere, the East Coast, and then you moved out here, and now you're in Nashville. You got all three.
Well, you know, I'm a traveling man. I like to go around. Yeah, well, I lived out here for 17 years.
Sure.
74 to 90, well, 92 really. And then inherited a house I grew up in Queens, New York.
Wow.
So I moved back there for about 5 years. I love New York, but it's a pain in the ass, to tell you the truth. And people were going, oh, you got to check out Nashville. That's where songwriters go. So as a songwriter, I thought, well, let's check it out. And I liked it. It was kind of nice. And so
It's kind of laid back, and you're always a quick flight back to LA.
Exactly. And the stress level is pretty low there. And, you know.
Growing up on the East Coast, what was your dreams of LA and Hollywood and the ocean and the Beach Boys and all this out here?
Well, it was all embodied in the Beach Boys and in, you know, those crazy movies, those beach party movies. That's, you know.
Blanket bingo.
But, you know, in many ways it was the Beach Boys who really put that seed in the ground in my brain. And then it seemed like all the acts that I really loved came out of LA, the Buffalo Springfield Birds, Doors, Love, you know, and so it was just natural to want to come here. And
so you just felt it right when you touched down here. There was just so much creativity and exploding, you know, bands and.
Well, the way that it happened, I was playing in a band. My band Sageworth was playing in D.C. And we were playing at this bar across the street from the Cellar Door, which is a big venue there.
Sure.
And Linda Ronstadt walked in with her band in 1970. And that band consisted of Don Henley and Glenn Frey and a guy named Chris Darrow. They heard us play and they really liked it, and so they eventually invited us to go out there to record. Chris did anyway. The band, half of the band thought it was a good idea, the other half thought it was too risky. So I waited until the band broke up and then wound up going out there at the behest of Mr. Chris Darrow. And sort of through him, I found all these people. I found Greg Lewick, who managed me, Andrew Lauder, who offered me my first deal from United Artists in England, and so it all sort of, you know, it's funny.
They're lost for not coming out, right?
I guess, although, you know, LA is, you gotta love it to really.
What an amazing adventure you had. You know, tell us about, we all know, of course, Magnet and Steel with Lindsey Buckingham involved. I know Stevie and Nikki Lindsey were involved with the first album. So there's that Fleetwood Mac connection you can't get away from.
No,
we got Mick here today. Tell us about, you know, collaborating, especially with Lindsey.
Well, it was like finding a brother that I didn't know I had on separate coasts. I mean, aside from the fact that my middle name is Lindsey and his name is Lindsey. And Stevie, the girl in my band was named Annie McClune, and Annie's birthday fell about a week after Stevie's. Okay. So when we got together, it was like, wow, you did that then, and I did, oh man.
Yeah,
and so, yeah, it was. There was, you know, when something is meant to happen, it feels right. And so it just kind of was an easy collaboration. He knew where I was coming from with my songs and understood it. And at the time, I was always in bands where I would write and play lead, but I wasn't the singer. I always felt everybody had a better voice than I did. So having Lindsey and Stevie in the studio with me gave me a lot of confidence, and they boosted me to go, no, you can do this, you can do this. So, so it was a great thing. And, you know, and of course, the Peyton Place aspect of Lindsey and Stevie's relationship was in play a little bit in Fundamental Role, the first album. And so Stevie would work on the vocals and Lindsey would work with the instruments and the arrangements and stuff. And so when we got to the second album, it was just Lindsey, Richard Dashut, who was one of the engineers on Rumors, and myself as the production team. And Stevie came in and sang on a few songs, and of course was the big inspiration for Magnet and Steel. So, you know, it was a great connection to have her singing on the song that I wrote about my feelings about her. So
we'll talk about writing the lyrics to that. You know, obviously your signature song, and still alive today in movies and TV and everything.
Yeah, it's a thread in the fabric of our lives. You know, it was a song I had been working on, the stroll, the feel, the chords, but I hadn't gotten the lyrics as right as I wanted them to be. And Lindsey and Stevie were working on my first album, and we were working at Sound City, and Stevie was doing the background vocals on a song of mine called Tunnel of Love, and she was doing her banshee wail, and it just hit something inside of me. And so like 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm driving home on the Hollywood freeway. I got behind this car. It was like a pimp mobile. It had the diamond window and the lights under it, and the license plate said "Not Shy," and I was like, wow. There it is. And so I was living in Pomona at the time, and by the time I got home, I had that whole concept of magnet and steel, and it came together really quickly after that. So
you knew when you put it together, it had that potential?
Well, actually, I didn't. I knew that it was an honest song, and I liked it. But I'm old enough to remember the 50s and the Stroll and that kind of stuff. So it was a little bit of a throwback.
Yeah.
But after we assembled all the tracks, in many ways it just seemed to jump out at people, and so I didn't stand in the way of it. But it was, the back part of it is, of course, people see me as more of a crooner, and I feel like I'm more of a rocker, an energetic kind of up-tempo guy. So that's been one of the ironies of my life to live with.
But back then, the music business was booming. You had American Bandstand and Solid Gold. And all the talk shows and everything. I mean, what do you miss most of that classic era?
The melodic music, as much as anything. I try to stay in touch with modern stuff, and I like some of it. I love Lana Del Rey. I love this band called Balance and Composure. John's son, Johnny's in a band called The Palms, and they're really good. I just saw them in Nashville.
Yeah.
But, it was a more innocent time. It was a more open time. People were discovering how to formalize it all.
Right.
And of course, everybody went over the top with all the excesses, and so it had to come back. But it's been rock and roll from the beginning. My religion is rock and roll, and so I've been true to it all these years. And when new wave and punk came in, I welcomed it, and my third album reflected that.
Yeah.
Of course,
you had a song covered by Graham Parker, right?
Graham Parsons, actually. That was the beginning of my career.
Okay.
In 1971, Graham and Emmylou Harris, who was a friend of ours, were recording. They had just gotten together, and I said, well, here's a song. And Emmylou's boyfriend was our bass player, Tom Geiderer. And I had written this country song with kind of a tongue-in-cheek. And Tom said, no, let's make it serious. And so he smoothed out the words. Graham liked it, and they did it on the Grievous Angel album. So, it's truly amazing, because he was someone I did look up to.
Yeah.
Of course, meeting him and being able to hang out with him when he was more or less sober, he was a wonderful sweetheart.
Yeah.
And when he wasn't, he was a very weird, kind of disturbed person. And I saw both sides of that. And so that, what it meant to me was that as I was becoming what I wanted to be, this isn't meant to sound immodest, but I kind of made myself my idol. I mean, it was like, well, live up to what you think it should be and then do it. And so, but I was lucky to be around those people, and
there were so many excesses that took so much talent away from us. You've obviously survived it. What advice do you give to the youngsters that think you got to be, doing every drug and alcohol in the business to be creative?
If that is why you're getting into music, then you probably should do something else, because the fact that that's associated with it, there is a certain amount of the creative process that goes along with, and it has forever, with whatever kind of stimulant there is. But you've got to love the music, you got to love the process of making the music and living the music, and then I think that should keep your head on straight. And I think, I don't know, maybe I'm just out of touch, but it seems most of the kids today that I've met that are doing it are much more
sober.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, a little herb here and there, but the hard chemicals thing of the past.
Exactly.
Now, your song obviously shows up on an Eminem hit. Dr. Dre is covering your song. What did that feel like? How did it come on your radar?
I got a call from EMI, who had the publishing at that point, and they said, you've got to approve this song because it's about to be released, and I said, it's based on your song. And I was like, okay. And I thought it would be a needle drop or a quote of the hook, which I think is the ooh part.
Yeah.
and they played it for me, and I was like, oh my God, they've got somebody else's song. They think it's me. This is, you know, and they wouldn't.
Barely heard it, huh?
They wouldn't send me the MP3 for fear I would release it. So they just played it for me over the phone, and I had my tape recorder up, and I was like, oh, okay. And so I was thrilled to find out that he actually had it. And of course, it was based on the hit version, which was Knight's version, because it's in the key of G minor, as opposed to mine, which is in the key of D minor. So it's, you know, it's great. It gives me great credibility with the youngsters that I hang out with. And when I'm not doing music, I do substitute teaching back in Nashville.
So they almost could have released it, no one would have noticed.
Well, I think that's true, although my manager said no, we would have gotten it. But I think, you know, you got to hand it to him for coming and being upfront with it.
That's incredible.
Because they could have tried to sneak it by. I don't listen to that
You
music.
would have thought that Robin Thicke should have probably cleared that little Marvin Gaye feeling, you know. Even though it wasn't a straight steal, it's obviously a big mess up right now.
I know. I think it's despicable when people try to steal other people's music, you know. I mean, and it's a tough life to make these days with the fact of songwriting earnings are nowhere close to what they were when you were just talking about the golden era there.
Publishing business was so big.
Yeah, and now with streaming and with, you know, ripping and stuff.
Trying to divide a penny up in 12 ways, you know.
Yeah, no, so it's a tough road to hoe. When I meet these kids, I work at these summer camps in Nashville, and they, you know, they say, tell me how to get in the business. I said, well, if you want to be a songwriter, you got to just write. But my advice is get something to fall back on at this point, because, you know.
Now, I know you also played a little bit with Spirit.
I did. I played bass for Spirit for 3 years in the 80s, along with Scott, and that was a thrill for me too, because Spirit was one of my favorite bands in '69 and '70, and so many times we'd play and I'd be getting some kind of acid flashback.
We had Mr. Skin on drums?
Yeah, oh yeah. And in fact, we played in Hialeah in Florida with the Hot Tuna, and I found this hard to believe, because this was in '88, maybe '89. And it was the first time Jack Cassidy had met Ed Cassidy at backstage there. It was like, wow, that's crazy. I can't believe that. But anyway.
That's great. Yeah, it was one of the first arena shows I saw in Dayton, Ohio, Air Arena, Spirit, 74, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that when the Stahaley brothers were in there, or was it Jay Ferguson still?
It wasn't Jay, but I was kind of in the back. I didn't know who was all on stage, but I know the bald-headed drummer definitely got his
Mr.
shot.
Clean, yeah, there you go, all new Mr. Clean.
Hit his head, man.
Yeah, Ed was he was, you know, he personified the whole music thing, because he started in bebop and he moved through rock, and he was actually Randy's stepfather for a while there, wasn't he? And so being on the road being on the road, sometimes he would be kind of our parent, and sometimes he'd be one of the guys. Yeah. And so Ed was an interesting character.
The voice of reason.
You're driving too fast. It's a 60-mile limit. All right. God, take it easy, Ed. You know, but yeah, that was a thrill for me to play.
Some good songs.
I've also been able to play lead guitar and sing with Randy and the Rainbows when I was living back in New York. They were the last doo-wop group to make the top 10 with Denise. What Denise to be do? And in Nashville, I've done maybe 5 or 6 shows playing guitar for Wanda Jackson, the original female rocker, and she's a trip. The first rehearsal with her, I was just kind of feeling my way through it, and she turned around and said, Walter, you're not rocking hard enough. Come on. It's like, oh, all right. Now you go.
Let loose.
Yeah, so that was really cool.
That's awesome. Walter, great to see you. Enjoy the rest of the Malibu Guitar Festival. Can't wait for that new music. Come on down.
Thank you very much. It's always great to speak with you, and always great to be in Malibu. Rock on.